go back gradually to the point where we can function as a society. If you want to get to pre-coronavirus, that might not ever happen.
Before we have a vaccine or before we have a widespread therapy that provides some kind of short-term immunity, if that becomes possible, then our movement back towards normal will need to be somewhat gradual.
And a Fox News alert, a lot of experts agreeing the United States may never return to the normal that we knew anyway, as the coronavirus claims more than 10,000 American lives.
Well, this as a second American company has started clinical trials in the race to find a vaccine for this thing. So what do we need to do to curb the outbreak and potentially normalize before the vaccine comes? Joining us now with his expert insight after studying coronavirus in China is Dr. Ian Lipkin. Sir, thanks for coming on today. We appreciate it. We're seeing China start to normalize at this point. Tell us what's happening there, and can we expect it here in the U.S.?
It's very similar to the trajectory we have, except that they're a few months ahead of us. Returning to normalcy here is going to require a vaccine. I agree with Dr. Fauci on this, because there's going to be a risk that this virus will reemerge, even if we get it under control now, during the next fall and winter season. So the vaccine is critical.
Well, let's talk about two different companies here in the States who are, attempting to create this vaccine, the Inovio pharmaceutical vaccine. This is what it looks like here, using 40 healthy volunteers from Philadelphia and Kansas City. It would be made using part of the virus's genetic code, and the company expects the results by late summer, so we'll see about that. They're aiming to have 1 million doses by the end of 2020, and then the NIH and Moderna started their clinical trial last month using 45 healthy volunteers. That's happening in the Seattle area. That would be the first vaccine developed using messenger RNA. What do you make of these two clinical trials?
I think these clinical trials are on track. They're where I expected them to be. I also note that there are many vaccines that are being made by other companies around the world. Bear in mind that we're going to need hundreds of millions of doses of this vaccine to get coverage. Everything that can be done to expedite the manufacture of these vaccines, their testing is being done. It's an accelerated schedule. But I do think that, first of all, I don't think it's going to be complicated to make this vaccine. There's no evidence that this virus is mutating and becoming more dangerous or capable of evading a vaccine. So I'm quite optimistic that this is going to work.
Sir, are we going to restaurants? Are we returning to any kind of normalcy? Are we socializing with other people before the vaccine comes?
I don't see how we can. It's going to be very difficult. The social distancing is clearly working. In the earlier segment, you were talking about flattening of curves across the United States. As long as we hold to that as a country, I think we're going to do fine. We will lose a lot of people, and that is tragic. And I'm not meaning to diminish that at all, but I think the evidence is that we're actually getting to where we need to be. So stay the course. It's going to take at least a couple of weeks without any new cases.
Sir,
before we're confident. I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
That the distancing will be getting things under control. And I think the efforts now to start wearing masks, which is something that we should have been doing a while ago, is also taking hold. That will also be important.
So to your point about the masks, we had an email by Aaron, and Aaron asked, many of us in major cities are now being urged to wear face masks in public. If I make one, what do I need to do to make sure it's effective, and can it be reused? What do you say to that?
There are two issues with the masks. I mean, you've got the famous N95 mask, which is the one that providers who are exposed to large amounts of virus need to wear. But virtually anything that you wear over your mouth and your nose that keeps droplets away from your face is going to be useful. If for no other reason than it reminds you not to touch your nose and your mouth and your eyes, which is how you convey the virus and infect yourself. There are a large number of instructional videos on YouTube that you can find as to how to make these masks.
How to make them.
And this does make a difference.
Yeah.
So, in 2003 and 2004, when we had studies of the impact of masks in China, we found that even the surgical masks, the ones that don't cover your face completely, resulted in a 60% reduction in risk if you wore them intermittently, 70% if you wore them all the time.
And I guess it's important for people to remember to wash their homemade masks, though.
So you can wash them. The other thing is that this virus doesn't live on surfaces more than 3 days. So if you make 3 masks and you simply rotate them, you're also fine.
Okay.
But it's important to know that the front of the mask is what's going to get contaminated. So when you set it down, set the portion that's adjacent to your face down on the table, so when you put it back on, you're not contaminating yourself.
That's a good tip. Let me ask you, I know you've been through the virus. You had COVID-19. What was the situation like? How did you handle it?
Oh, it was miserable. It was, you have high fever, headache, coughing incessantly. It was like that for me for almost 2 weeks. Fortunately, I never got to the point where I needed to go back to an ICU. But I'm now back on track, back in harness, and working on plasma therapy, communication, diagnostics, everything I can do to help the fight.
Well, we are glad to hear that you are doing better right now and that you made it through to the other side. And thanks for sharing that information with us.
Thanks so much.
Dr. Ian Lipkin, have a good day.
All right, sports, part of the fabric of this country, but arenas and stadiums are like ghost towns right now.
Our next guest says pro leagues are making dramatic and sometimes painful changes as they adapt to this new normal. Former pro football player Jack Brewer joins us live.